you make attempts to get the pump urgently?
Yes. And that's why at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was following up with Ravi Prasad.
So you are saying that the pumps were for the rescue operation?
Correct.
Okay. Look at the next, at paragraph 112. However, the Eastern Divers Rescue Team, who had arrived earlier and were asked to develop a rescue plan, advised that realistically this was no longer a rescue and they would not attempt a confined space entry for the recovery of the deceased persons. So Eastern was telling you that was no longer a rescue as far as they were concerned, it's recovery of the deceased persons.
That was the opinion of the Eastern Divers Rescue Team.
Were the pumps ordered the day before for recovery operation or rescue operation?
A rescue operation.
Rescue. Then at paragraph 113, despite the IMT efforts, the TTCG Hull Support Services Limit, Mitchell Divers and OTSL could not be persuaded to enter the pipeline to conduct any rescue efforts. All four parties explained that there would be significant risks to their own divers and attempted to rescue the divers by entering the pipeline. However, IMT continued to make efforts to get a diver to attempt a rescue for the missing divers to collect and share information to make preparatory steps to facilitate requests by LMCS. First question is that you would agree with me that these companies would be reluctant to have gone into the pipeline to rescue the divers if they believed that it was no longer a rescue but a recovery of dead bodies.
Say that again? They were
So Chairman, in fairness to the witness, I don't know if the witness could answer what the other companies would be thinking.
My inclination is to think that for them to calculate whether or not they were prepared to risk their people, they would want to know whether there was any realistic prospect of the people in the pipe being dead or alive. Nobody wants to risk divers if they're already dead. I think that's the purpose of the question. Well, now you're trying to flatter me, and that's not. I think you need to put your mic on.
Right. No, the way Mr. Marchard framed it, it was asking the witness to explain the thinking of the diving companies, but the way you're framing it, it's based on the facts that it's a deduction to be drawn.
All right. Perhaps you'll rephrase your question, Mr. Maharaj. I think we understand where you're going. I think Mr. Way probably does now, but I'll rephrase the question, would you?
Mr. Way, would you agree with me that divers to go into that pipeline, these companies to go into that pipeline, they would obviously want to consider whether it is realistic to go into the pipeline and rescue a living person or a dead person?
That would play into their consideration, but as I said, I would know the exact considerations at this time.
Okay.
Well, I mean, that's not entirely fair, is it? Because you've just had read to you at paragraph 112. If you can scroll back the other way. Thank you. You've just had that paragraph read to you. Eastern Divers Rescue Team, who presumably you called as experts to advise you. Am I right?
Someone else called them, but...
Well, I don't mean you personally. Forgive me, Mr. Way. You, the IMT.
Yes, the IMT, yes.
Called the Eastern Divers Rescue Team for their expertise.
Yes.
Presumably you place some faith in their expertise.
Yes.
And they were saying to you that they took the view at this stage, by the look of what that paragraph says, they were saying to you they believed there was no real prospect of these men still being alive.
Yes, that was
What time are we talking about?
This would have been somewhere around maybe 7 o'clock, early hours in the morning.
7 o'clock or so in the morning?
Yes.
Right. So what's the time gap between Mr. Boudram coming out of the pipe and 7 o'clock in the morning?
That would be about that would be only
13 or 14 hours. We're talking about something like that.
yeah.
Something in that order, isn't it?
Yes.
Did you regard it as being likely that these men were still going to be alive 13 or 14 hours after Mr. Boudram, having been in there for some hours himself, had come out?
Repeat that question.
Yes. Did you regard it, you, the IMT, I don't mean you
Yes.
personally, you, the IMT, did you regard it as being likely or unlikely that these men had already died?
Let me answer this question. The IMT considered still rescue options.
Yes. Well,
It
that's
is not considered.
I understand that's a question you want to answer, but I'd like you to answer my question. And my question is whether or not you, in the IMT, had considered, given that you'd just been given the advice by people you placed faith in, Eastern
Right.
Divers Rescue Team, that these men were already dead.
No, we had considered that the guys may still be alive.
They might still be alive. All right. So, notwithstanding what you'd been told by Eastern Divers Team, who said they were not going to prepare to risk their divers, the basis being that they thought the other divers were already dead,
Yes.
you were still looking at options.
Correct.
Thank you very much. The paragraph that Mr. Maharaj was asking you about, at paragraph 113, you say this: despite the IMT's efforts, the Coast Guard, the Hull Support Services Limited, and Mitchell Divers, and OTSL. What's OTSL?
Offshore Technology Services Limited.
Did they have divers?
Yes.
And had you consulted with them?
The IMT consulted with them.
Right. What about Mitchell Divers?
The
They
IMT
obviously
would-
had divers.
I understand the IMT would have consulted with them.
Right. Hull Support Services Limited, did they have divers?
Yes.
And the Coast Guard, did they have divers?
Yes.
Right. So all of those other organisations, other than the Eastern Divers, did they think that the men were still alive, or might be?
What I don't know, what I know that they were considering that the risk of diving into the line was high.
Well, I dare say it would be. But you see, the way you phrase that, I'm kind of anxious to understand you, because your paragraph says none of those people could be persuaded.
Correct?
So that I understand it, are you saying that the IMT were trying to persuade any one of these organisations, please go in the pipe, please rescue these men? What am I to take? Am I
Yes.
to understand that's the position?
Okay, so picture the scenario. At
I'm
that
trying.
stage, a dive rescue was still being considered.
Right.
So there are companies who responded that were readily available.
Yep.
So you're exploring all options. They are saying it was unsafe and significant risk to put their divers to go in that pipeline without knowing all the conditions that we explained before. And we were trying to convince them in whatever way we could have done, and also continue looking for other options
Right.
of divers.
Well, then the last option might have been the LMCS.
That is true.
Because nowhere here do you say, do you, that you asked LMCS if they had divers that were prepared to go in?
If we refer later on into the statement, LMCS on Sunday came forward with a diver that said we're willing to enter the pipeline.
All right, let me see if I understand you. You're saying that LMCS did not offer divers to dive into the pipeline until Sunday. Is that what
Did
you're saying?
not come forth with any rescue plan.
No.
Or full rescue
No, my
system.
question, please. Forget the rescue plan. That comes after. You're entitled, of course, to say we're not prepared to let your divers go in without a rescue plan. I want to know, first of all, please, whether LMCS were offering divers to dive into the pipe.
Yes.
Right. And were they doing that at the same time as you say in these two paragraphs here that all of the other companies that you were considering using could not be persuaded to go into the pipeline?
At that time, I don't know, because this would have, the divers at that stage would be offshore and I would have been onshore. But I would expect that there would still be divers wanting to go into the pipeline.
Right. You agree that you knew that LMCS's divers, or some of them, were prepared to go into the pipeline at this time. Do you agree with that?
Wanted to.
Yes.
Not
Now, I
prepared.
understand that you may have good reasons why you didn't want to let them.
Right.
And that
No,
may be
okay.
perfectly good.
I taken the word prepared means
Yes.
that had a rescue plan, everything prepared to enter the
No,
line.
well, that's not what I mean.
Okay.
I'm a diver. I work for LMCS. These are my buddies in that pipeline, or my relatives. I'm prepared to go in there. Or willingness to do so.
Yeah,
Do you follow?
willingness.
Did you know that there were a number of divers who expressed a willingness to go into the pipeline?
Okay, I was not in direct communication, right? But I only know of LMCS suggesting that one diver was willing to go into the line.
Well, I'd hope you wouldn't be putting any more than one at a time, anyway. Can I just... I'm sorry if this is difficult, Mr. Way. I just want to understand whether you knew, at the same time as you're saying this was taking place, and our paragraphs 112 and 113, were there any divers from LMCS saying, I am willing to go in the pipeline? It's a yes or no, isn't it? Did you know about that?
I would not know about that. No,
You
I
did not know. So are you saying then the IMT did not know?
No, specific me.
Well, you're part of the IMT. Surely
The
you would
IMT
know
structure, there's the IMT leader who has more information than me,
that. All right.
right?
And who was the IMT leader? Mr. Piper, was it?
Colin Piper.
Right.
Right?
So I should
No.
ask him.
Yes, but I do know that LMCS came forward with one diver who I met on the Sunday who was willing to go into the pipeline.
But you didn't know that until Sunday. Is that what I'm to understand?
That's the only time I was confirmed to me that there was a diver willing to go.
That was when it was confirmed.
I heard comments and statements that divers wanted to enter the water.
Divers?
Right, by LMCS on the Friday. On the Saturday, I think there was not much talk of any diver going into the water. And then in the afternoon, a diver would have been available from LMCS, but he was not able to come until Sunday. That's the information I have.
Right.
So I hope
So
that
there were
clarifies.
divers on the Friday who were prepared to enter the water. You heard nothing much on the Saturday. And then on the Sunday, you had it confirmed to you that there was a diver who was prepared to come on the Sunday.
Correct.
And whether that was on Saturday you heard it or the Sunday, it doesn't really matter. He was not available until the Sunday.
Yes.
That's really what you heard, is it? Who told you that?
I can't specifically recall.
Was it someone from the IMT?
Someone from the IMT.
Right. Would it have been Mr. Piper, do you think?
No, I don't think it was Mr. Piper.
No. All right. Couldn't hazard a guess?
Maybe Catherine Balkisoon.
Maybe Mr. Balkison.
Yeah.
Miss, it's Miss, isn't it?
Miss.
It's a Miss. Yeah, thank you.
But on this Sunday, they came with the diver, and that I know.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Mr. Maharaj.
Mr. Way, I'm suggesting to you that you and the IMT knew of the request of LMCS for divers to go into the pipeline, and I refer you to paragraph 114 of your witness statement. I'll read it for you. You want to look at it?
Yeah. However,
Okay.
the IMT continued to make efforts to get a diver to attempt to rescue the missing divers, to collect and share information, to make preparatory steps, and to facilitate requests by LMCS.
So you knew of LMCS requests to get divers to enter the pipeline, and the IMT was trying to facilitate those requests.
I don't know if it's being read in the right way, right? However, the IMT continued to make efforts to get divers to attempt to rescue missing divers, to collect and share information, and to make preparatory steps, and to facilitate requests by LMCS. It's all separate. If I read it, I take it as separate actions. IMT continue to make efforts to, 1, get a diver to attempt to rescue the missing divers, 2, to collect and share information, 3, to make preparatory steps, and 4, to facilitate requests by LMCS.
But what do you think the request was for when you wrote this witness statement?
Specifically, there was a request by LMCS to remove the hyperbaric chamber, and there was a specific request by LMCS to cut the lifting bar that was obstructing the top of the new riser from entry of any personnel or equipment into the pipeline.
So you were getting information for all of that, but not in respect of LMCS wanting to send their divers into the pipeline?
The request to remove those items by LMCS might most likely, if I was to interpret, would have been in the process of allowing a diver to go into the pipeline. Because at the top of the hyperbaric chamber height, at that time on the Saturday, the hyperbaric chamber height was maybe 6 or 8 feet above the internal riser. Meaning that if you needed to enter the line for any diving operation, you first had to build a scaffolding and get yourself down 6 to 8 feet to the riser level. And the riser had an LMCS design for lifting that riser in place, had a bar, meaning that a physical obstruction through the center of the pipe. To send a diver down through there with equipment needed that bar to be removed. So I would agree with you that LMCS would have facilitated, would have requested to remove the hyperbaric chamber and cut out that bar so that they can send a personnel down, and I would say so.
You remember you told us here this morning in your evidence that LMCS was supposed to have an emergency response plan.
Yes.
And that emergency response plan would have been, in such case, to send divers into the pipeline.
No.
So an emergency response from LMCS would not have, you didn't envisage that any such emergency response plan would have had a plan to send in divers into the pipeline with this kind of situation.
It was LMCS' responsibility to envisage that. Let me step back. LMCS would have done an emergency response plan to cater for credible scenarios. And in their emergency response plan, divers into the pipeline was not considered. So there was no plan at that time with the emergency rescue plan for divers to enter the pipeline to extract divers.
But Mr. Way, what I'm asking you now, final question on this issue. What I'm asking you now, did you at any time, from the time you got the information at 6 p.m. that Budram had come out of that pipeline, you consulted with other dive companies to get someone to go into the pipeline? Did you consult, or did the IMT consult with LMCS to get any divers to go into that pipeline?
I would say yes.
Yes, who you consulted with?
I would say Colin Piper would have definitely tried to communicate with LMCS.
You have records of that in the IMT?
I will leave that to Colin Piper.
Okay. I'm going to go to the other aspect of the... I see Commissioner Wilson wants to ask some questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Way. I'm going to, just from off of your statements, I'm going to try and interrogate the IMT philosophy from what I heard from you, if you don't mind. The first question I'd like to ask is, with your experience and as a member of the IMT, how often do you guys drill for any type of response, whether it be small, large?
I can't recall.
So it's not the practice of Paria to drill for emergency responses?
No, Paria would have emergency drills, right? But I can't recall the last time I would have been specifically involved in a site-wide emergency response plan.
Oh, an IMT drill. All right. So one of the things that I found interesting is when an IMT convenes, do they set out the priorities of addressing an incident as an integrated team or separately? That means, do you guys come together and sit as a team in any specified area that is committed to addressing emergencies within your real estate?
Yes.
All right. So, because that would speak to, if you are convening collectively, that you might be most likely aware of all the priorities and all the information coming into the IMT. So I was just when I heard, your responsibility of other, probably chiefs, section chiefs or something like that. But I just wanted to know how the updates come in. And then thirdly, I heard that it went on for a sort of protracted period with the, meaning it started Friday, Saturday, listening to, right? At any point in time, did you guys leave the IMT, or did you have an handover to other IMT members to manage the situation?
Okay, yes, if we left the IMT, we'll hand over to someone.
Okay, so there's a back-to-back logistics section chief like yourself who...
Okay, so we did not, because of the nature of this incident, right, we were working, what do you say, extra long hours, right? And in my statement, I had called out Prakash Bihari to be my my backfill.
Okay. And as I said, I'm trying to interrogate the IMT practices. Is it a Paria practice to have an on-site commander, meaning there's a designated person on behalf of Paria at the site to relay information back into the IMT?
Yes.
And, okay. So that would address some of your earlier comments that you wasn't aware of what was coming in from the site. How was that, if you had a on-site commander?
Right. The on-site commander would have relayed directly to Colin Piper, the incident commander.
Right.
Right. I would have had other people outside there too, right? And they might have called and relayed certain things to me. But with the incident command structure, the instructions I would take would come from the IMT leader.
So,
and if there's information I thought I would feed back to him that from...
But you would agree that the on-site commander is feeding information back into the IMT, which has to be dispersed amongst the IMT members.
Yes.
So, because you all are not making decisions in silos.
Yes.
Right.
But the decisions, most of the decisions basically and direction comes from the IMT leader.
Understood. All right. I just have one last question. When it comes to the Coast Guard and some of the other members that you had there, under your IMT philosophy practice, do you have a unified command? Meaning, is there someone that manages all the conversations, all the information you're getting from different bodies, Coast Guard, other contractors and stuff, to make a decision? Or is it, how are those conversations managed?
Okay, so most of the conversations would have gone through the incident commander, and also to the conversation or information coming in would be scribed.
Yeah, through the ICS forms and stuff, yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your feedback.
Much obliged. Yes. At paragraph 75 of your witness statement, you stated that LMCS method statements, JHA risk assessment, and dive plan documents submitted with the ITB proposal were reviewed and accepted by the Technical and Maintenance Department. Is that correct?
LMCS method statement risk plan submitted with the ITB proposal were reviewed and accepted by the technical and as part of the evaluation of the tender. Yes.
So would it be correct to say then that Paria accepted these documents?
The documents provided in the ITB proposal, yes.
All the documents you mentioned here, Paria accepted them?
Yes.
And agreed to them?
Yes.
in order for the contract to have been awarded to LMCS, Paria had to agree to these documents. Without Paria's agreement, there could not have been a contract.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, in the scope of works which was developed by Paria, did it provide, as far as you can recall, for the line content to be cleared of sea line 36?
There would be some clearing of the fuel oil in the line, yes.
Right.
The oil in the line.
And the system of the monitoring of the works that Paria had was a control of work system. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. And that meant that Paria would monitor compliance with the method statements and with the risk assessments.
Monitor,
Monitor.
which is not dedicated monitoring.
But, and as far as you're concerned, Paria had a competence to monitor.
Yes.
Yes. And Paria did monitor.
Yes.
Yes. Now, I want to, you are familiar with the method statements, the risk assessment statements, and the emergency response plan. I don't want to go into what it is, but you are familiar with it?
That was provided with the ITB.
Yes.
I'm familiar with it to a certain extent. If I need to ask clarification, if I need to see it, I'll ask.
How, I want to show you, can I show CB, I want to show the witness CB 659, Volume 2, Tab 21.
Volume
659. And you see Section A, procedure for removal of line content between berth 5 and berth 6, and then removal of liquid content. And then you would have seen that, and then you see it at number 4. It doesn't have 4 there, but if you check 1, 2, 3, 4, remove, then you see using air-driven pump. You could read that one. Approximately 300 barrels of line content to be pumped in Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited, etc., etc. And once level in the riser has dropped to 35 feet below sea level, a line plug will be installed. Now, this was accepted by Paria, this method statement.
Yes. The removal of line content between 65. Yes.
Could you give us an idea what you understand this to mean?
That the section that they needed to remove some of the line content between berth 5 and 6 so that a line plug will be installed, which they estimated that to be 35 feet below sea level and possibly approximately 300 barrels. But the intent of this procedure would have been to remove sufficient content so that they can install the line plug. This is all part of preparation works so that they could conduct the maintenance activities of cutting the line.
Yeah. But you're not telling us about the 300 barrels.
The 300 barrels, That's an estimation. Because, okay, the line, what you are seeing on that drawing is basically the U, right? Which I don't know, you may have done a calculation and estimated the amount of barrels there. But the additional parts for the elbows, for the line straight, and maybe that 300 is an approximate number what they estimated that figure to be. But the intent of it all, if I read it at face value, once the level in the riser has dropped to 35 feet below sea level, a line plug will be installed. So the intent was to get the line plug installed.
But when Paria looked at this, did Paria ask for any explanation? Do you know?
What explanation?
As to 300 barrels and then 35 feet below sea level? Because what you're telling us, it could give the impression that 300 barrels had to be removed, and also 35 level had to be shown at another part of the line.
No. This is saying that once level in the riser has dropped to 35 feet below sea level, which is an actual number, a line plug will be installed. And the estimated amount might be about 300 barrels. The 300 barrels could be, for all intents, maybe 200, and they just say, well, round it up to 300. But the intent here, permit me if I read it wrong, but procedure for removal of line content between berth 5 and 6, removal of liquid content from sea line 36, diameter 30-inch line, sufficient removal to allow replacement of corroded section. And the last line is what they're trying to achieve, which is once level in riser has dropped to 35 feet below sea level, a line plug will be installed.
Okay.
You see, I understand what you're saying, but certain things inside this will change. During the process, for example, they remove spool completely one straight, but the intent at the end of the day is a clear objective.
But the purpose of approval of the method statement by Paria is to ensure that the work is done safely.
Right. So let's step back a bit, because these documents were created at the time of tender. At the time of tender, the contractor has all the information required to make a detailed method statement or procedure for the. So they would put what they best see, right? So, but they know that they want to go 35 feet to install the line plug.
Okay, but Paria.
So when they would have done, when after the award of tender, and then they have the specific site visits, and they are able to measure and estimate properly, they might have come back and say it's not 300 barrels. But they were clear in saying, if I read this again, 35 feet below sea level, a line plug will be installed.
But Paria accepted this method statement and awarded a contract.
Yes.
Would you agree with me that Paria had a duty in assessing the risk, to assess the risk to ensure that a Delta P situation would not arise?
No. I do not agree with you on that. Paria, if you step back in the scope, let me see. Spare me time because I'm not very familiar with this. But basically, Paria.
What is it you're looking for? Let me see if we can.
No, you'll get the time to look at it.
No, tell us
Paria was looking for an expert contractor, experienced expert contractor to execute this work. So they penned out this tender. These documents are to demonstrate that the contractor has a good understanding of the job and the requirements of the scope. It is understood after acceptance and award, additional information will be provided to the contractor, at which time he, with his technical expertise, will be bringing forward the hazards associated with his specialized tasks.
Yes, Mr.
Paria would look at the general risks For example, those with respect to operational,
But
not expected to know all the risks of what the specialist contract is to do.
Well, let's assume that I accept everything you say.
Well, thank you.
The point about it is that Paria undertook to assess the risk also, and based on that assessment awarded the contract. So do you think that Paria had a duty of care in ensuring that the risk assessment for the job and the method statement was safe?
Right. So again, in the tender evaluation stage, it is done more from a higher level in the sense that all the nitty-gritty details, you would expect that to be ironed out later on the award of contract when the contractor is now able to get good information from his site. I mean, I don't know how I can explain it better. I mean, before, for example, Chairman, you would have read all of these documents and you had an idea of what outside was. Yesterday, I'm sure you would have gone outside and have a totally better idea. The same is here. The contractor is not on current with all the details of the site.
Mr. Wee, just a second. Mr. Wee, I'm going to try and follow you here now. Are you saying that for a contractor to issue or put in his tender, he did so without a site visit first?
No. If you go through my statement, there's when there was a virtual site visit and the option of a mandatory site visit, I think. So yes, there is the site visit stage.
So he had the site visit stage prior to issuing his tender in?
Yes, that all forms part of the tendering process.
Right, I just wanted to be clear because I heard from you, you said site visit after they awarded.
That would be reckless to allow somebody just to submit a bid without sufficient details of which to put a reasonable tender bid package in.
And the second question is, under your controller work system and in the planning stages, Paria wouldn't sit with any elected contractor and in partnership identifying hazards, risk assessments, however you want to term it. You just leave it to your contractors to do, or is it a partnered exercise under your controller work process?
It's a partnered exercise, not sitting directly with each other in a room. It's a partnered exercise in that the contractor prepares his method statement and risk assessment with the best knowledge of his expertise in the execution of the said task. He would know the specific risks. Paria would take that and also look at it and complement that with the risk that Paria has that is on his site.
So I understand that. My question is there an exercise or exercises where Paria, the operator, sits with the contractor and executes hazard identification, risk assessments, or you just say, contractor, give me your risk assessment, let me review?
Right. Review, and we would add, and we would if there's obvious risk for us, yes, but the contractor still has the responsibility to identify the specific hazards of the specialized work that he's doing. I don't know if I answered your question, but...
But in reviewing it, you will assess the risks.
The contractor would have...
But you, for reviewing, would you assess the risk?
The contractor would assess his risk. We would take that the risk is properly assessed. If there's any obvious flaw or risk that was not considered, yeah, we're free to bring it up or question what he has.
So, Mr. Way, in effect, you're telling me that Paria didn't have the competence to assess the risks?
No, we're not saying that.
You're not saying that?
I'm saying that.
So
LMCS would have provided, through their competence as the expert contractor, the risks that they saw with their job. Now, I don't know if you're expecting that Paria now would have the same expertise as the expert contractor to assess their risks.
Okay, I understand you.
But Paria being the side with respect to the management of the site and the management of a port would bring the risks of their side. So, for example, with respect to the ships coming and the hazard that plays with, Paria would bring that in. So Paria would not be expected to say, here what, LMCS, you did not identify the risk of delta P. Correct that? No. But if they had said, there's an obvious risk that they did not consider, let's say, an explosive environment, Paria would really say, wait, there's a risk here. And I think that is why you would have, as you read later on, why there's the insistence of a migration barrier.
Okay.
Not to jump forward, but...
We'll come to that. But you would agree with me that Paria supervised the works?
No.
No.
I will not agree with you on that.
You do not agree that Paria supervised the execution of the works?
Okay, so...
Do you agree that Paria supervised the execution of the works?
Paria did not supervise, dedicated supervision of that job.
What Paria did?
Paria would monitor.
Monitor. Look at your witness statement at paragraph 23. At page
1276.
It says the role of the planner was to develop the scope of work supporting the tendering process and to oversee the execution of the project by the contractor. Is that accurate?
That is accurate what I have here, yes.
Yes. So
But,
you...
Yes, go ahead.
So Paria oversee the execution of the works?
Not to be interpreted as supervise the execution of the works.
They monitor it?
Yes.
To see that it complies with the requirements of the contract?
That too, yes.
Yeah.
In as much as is possible.
And according to, well, Paria, in respect of these works, your department monitored and reported on the ongoing works which was being done by Rajiv Mangali, your representative, and Houston Majad Singh.
Yes.
And according to you at paragraph 67 of your witness statement, at page 1283, yes. 1283. The said maintenance technicians receive daily verbal reports from LMCS of the progress of the works. They use these verbal reports together with their own observations to produce daily work reports, and they then submitted these daily work reports to the planner during the course of the project. So monitoring and supervising, Mr. Way.
I'm not seeing how you interpret that.
Okay, well, but you agree that what you said is accurate?
What I said is accurate that
Okay. Look at paragraph 67. On the ground level, my department monitored and reported on ongoing works through Kensan technicians, Rajiv Mangali, Houston Majad Singh, who reported to Paria planner Terence Rampasad Singh. They were situated mostly on site and rotated between berths 5 and 6, which are offshore and the offshore docks, and called Badger docks, which is on land.
Yes.
That is accurate, correct?
Yeah.
All right. What do you want to show me? And can I show the witness, Mr. Chairman, 565 core bundle 2? if you go to page 565, you have co-bundle 2, Mr. Why?
565?
Yes, 565. And this is the scope of work prepared by Paria, and you, your department would have been involved in this.
565.
3112, correct? Note video stream. You see at paragraph 3.1.
Sorry. What number you said?
565.
Yes.
Right, you see at the top of 3.11, the contractor shall execute the following. Okay? 3.11. At the top of that, it says the contractor shall execute the following. Correct? You see that just at the top?
Well, I don't.
If you look...
565, you said?
No, if you look at 564 first. Sorry.
Sorry.
564, just under the heading renewal of section SL riser, etc. Then just under that, the contractor shall execute the following. And then there's the description of the works. And then you will see at at page 565, 3.1.12. And then you see at the end of that sentence, note video stream to be provided topside during work activity for Paria's representative. You see that?
Yes.
So you still maintain that Paria does not supervise the work?
I'm kind of thinking that there's a miscommunication between what is supervision and monitoring.
Okay.
Supervision is dedicated on the job.
We'll take your answer.
Right?
Can I?
No, I need to say it because you're
he must be allowed to
Yeah,
answer.
okay.
You are trying to say that you are saying that the monitoring is dedicated monitoring. Supervision is what we want, is dedicated supervision on the site. Paria monitors, meaning that Paria representative doesn't have to be on that site 100% of the time. The contractor official is to be on that site 100% of the time, supervising the execution of his works. This is the concept of the independent contractor. Paria will not supervise the independent contractor. It's their responsibility. Getting on to your point here now, note video stream to be provided at topside work during Paria. Paria is asking for that Paria has an option here to monitor the live stream. Right? Because they might have considered this step critical, which was insert migration barrier. And they wanted confirmation that it was installed because this is in the hyperbaric chamber or wherever, and they needed to see it.
Why would they need to see it?
Because for Paria, that would have been a serious, this migration barrier would have kept hydrocarbons, kept that seal between hydrocarbons and any hot work to be conducted.
Okay.
So from a Paria, right, so you asked about the risk. The hydrocarbon risk is what Paria would be obvious to.
Okay. Anything else you want to say on that?
No, if you
Okay.
understand what I'm saying, I wouldn't need to say anything else.
I want to go to show you, I'm still on the evidence pointing out to you.
Yeah.
At page 570, look at page 570.
Yes.
You see paragraph 4.0?
Yes.
Right. Paria's responsibility. Supply personnel for organizing all work permits, certificates, monitoring contractors' performance and work standards, approving work done by the contractor, and carrying out quality assurance audits. You agree that is Paria's role? and responsibility.
Yes.
And look at 4.4. Provide personnel for the acceptance of work executed. You
Yes.
agree that that is Paria's responsibility
Yes.
in respect of these works?
Yes.
And look at paragraph 4.5. Is it 4.5? Yeah. Yes,
Right.
to provide personnel to oversee isolation, de-isolation, depressurization, pressurization, draining, filling product from lines at berths 5 and berth 6. You agree with that?
Yes.
So Paria had a responsibility to provide personnel to oversee the draining of the lines.
Right. Not supervise.
Yes, right. And the purpose of Paria doing that is to ensure that the draining of the lines comply with what Paria agreed to in the contract.
To oversee, as I mentioned, oversee doesn't mean that you're there all the time, right? But you're right. That line is to provide to oversee the isolation, depressurization, and filling of lines.
Well, if according to you, it is very important for the line to be drained in accordance with the contract, because you as an expert will know if the line is dry and you're having a migration barrier, you could create a delta P situation.
No, I didn't say that.
No, but... Okay.
I didn't say a delta P situation.
Okay.
I said
Give me the affidavit. Give me the affidavit.
to create the barrier for hydrocarbons not to enter the workspace.
It's the way at paragraph, well, before I ask you, would you agree with me that if in this matter, in these works, the line was drained, the line was empty, okay, or mostly empty, and the migration barrier was installed, that is to say the plugs were installed on that line, and the habitat came over the line in accordance with the works, that there would have been a latent delta P differential hazard situation?
If the hyperbaric chamber was installed over and the plugs was installed and the line was empty, yes, there would have been a latent delta P.
Right.
We know that now.
So therefore, if in relation to what I just read to you about personnel overseeing the draining of the line, and Paria recognized that you could have had a delta P hazard if the line was overdrained, if I use that expression.
Okay.
Wouldn't you agree that Paria would have had a duty to oversee what was being drained?
Step back there, because you're talking about what is in the tender document. Subsequent to that, there was a bid document that we just read that LMCS had said what we accepted thereafter was to remove 35 feet for installation of the plugs. So that would have now been the requirement of LMCS.
Well, LMCS had two figures, 300 barrels and 35 feet. But the point I'm getting at you, the point I'm trying to ask you, that if that was a dangerous situation, and you said it was a potentially dangerous situation if you had that with the line dry and the migration plug installed and the hyperbaric chamber installed. And Paria, this is in the scope of duty, which Paria accepted as a responsibility to monitor the works, to oversee the works.
So the migration barriers were installed for the hazard that Paria would have seen, which is the explosive mixture. The contractor, specialist contractor, should have seen that risk, because that is, he is familiar with the use of hyperbaric chambers. Paria infrequently use the hyperbaric chamber.
Okay.
You say frequently or
Paria, Paria would have only used that hyperbaric chamber previous in 2020. LMCS being the specialist contractor would have more experience in that. So we would rely on the expert.
Can I just be clear? You don't profess to be an expert in diving matters, and so I don't.
And hyperbaric chamber, no.
But you have said that you understand what delta P is.
After the incident, a better understanding.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about. Did you have an appreciation of what delta P is, before this contract was concluded, before it was even opened? Did you understand a risk associated with delta P, what that was?
No, because the contractor never contemplated that in his risk assessment.
Irrespective of this job, right? It's irrespective. Did you yourself have any kind of understanding of what delta P is?
With respect to the hyperbaric chamber, no.
Or irrespective of a even outside of that particular.
Yes, you would.
You'd heard of it before, had you?
Yeah.
And having heard of it before, did you understand the mechanics of it? You've got differential pressure.
Yes.
And obviously, if you've got pressure in one side that's greater than the other, it's going to push it till it finds its equilibrium, isn't it? Did you understand that as a sort of basic science, if you like? Yes?
Yes.
All right. But as I understand what you're saying is, it never entered your head to consider that as an issue at all, because LMCS had never raised it as an issue.
Yes.
Am I right about that?
Yes. As a specialist contractor, they would be familiar with those risks.
And you regarded LMCS as being the specialist contractor?
Correct.
Right. Can I, in that regard, then, please, ask you this? Did you think there was ever any ambiguity at all about the extent to which the line was to be cleared? Whether it was to be completely cleared, partially cleared, or anything else? Did you have any? Did you understand there to be any ambiguity about that?
Okay. So from the tender document, I think it's clear that the line should be emptied sufficiently to reinstall the blocks.
Right.
Subsequent to that, the development of the method statements would not have been under my purview. Right. So I would not have been involved in development of the method statements and the communication thereafter. But what last I would have seen would have been on the tender document with respect to...
Thereafter, you had no further interest in the detail of what happened. Is that what you're saying?
To put it lightly, yes.
I'm trying to lose some of the jargon because I don't follow half of it. So I just want to understand, so that we all understand. Your position is that you saw the tender documents, took them at face value. Thereafter, you had no further involvement in the detail or amendments
in
to
development
that.
of the details, yes.
Right, all right. So can I ask you to have a look at a document? Just tell me if you've ever seen it before. 598, please. Page 598. You see, this is described as an addendum. Paria-Fuel Trading Company Limited, miscellaneous repairs and refurbishment works at 5 and 6 berths, main viaduct, addendum 1. Do you see that?
Yes.
Is this a document you've seen before?
Yes.
At the time or subsequently?
I would have seen this for the addendum when the issuing of the tendering.
Right. So the following are questions raised with clarifications. This addendum has to be signed and submitted with the technical tender submission. You know?
Right.
So,
yes.
and the point of it, as I understand it, is that you're, where there is some ambiguity or some question arises from the original works, that can be dealt with in this addendum. Question-answer session.
Yeah, this is clarification. This is the response to clarifications from invited bidders.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is being sent out. Who is responsible for pumping back from the berths to clear the lines with water?
Who's this, mine?
You see that?
Right.
Who's asking that question?
This would be one of the invited bidders.
The invited bidder, right. And the response comes from you, does it?
Yes, from Paria.
So the response from Paria is, the contractor is responsible for the safe removal of hydrocarbon content from the line and to ensure that the line is clear and dry. What did you understand that to mean?
Safe removal of hydrocarbon
Yep.
and ensure that the line is clear and dry.
Yes. What does that mean?
It could mean, with respect to, it's a little unclear because it could mean, it didn't define the amount to remove.
No, well,
So it could mean from just below or the entire line.
would you agree?
If I was to read it.
Mr. Way, would you agree with me that at best it is ambiguous?
Yes.
And this, I mean, I'm not saying it's you. I appreciate
Yes.
you didn't write this.
It could be ambiguous.
But whoever wrote it, whoever made that response to the not unreasonable query that arises, your response, that is you, the company Paria's response, was, would you agree, at best ambiguous?
Yes.
Thank you.
But subsequent to this was the tender documents.
I'm sure there are many documents that came after this, and there's a scheme of work as well, which I anticipate at some point we'll get to. But I'm starting from the beginning because that's where we are at the moment. Where we end up is another matter. But at this stage, at any rate, in seeking clarification, which I assume this is all what this is all about, the answer is, at that stage, at any rate, ambiguous. One would hope that such ambiguity would have been cleared up.
If it was ambiguous to another contractor, they could have asked for clarification a bit further.
Yeah, well, it's ambiguous to you and it's ambiguous to me, all right? So one would hope that somewhere along the line, someone would say exactly what we're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. All right. We'll get to what happens later.
In respect of supervision, I just want to point out to you, if you can look at CB1 at page 28 and 29, that has to do with the permit to work procedure. And would you look at page 29, 1, 2, 3, 4 from the beginning. For the fifth one, stop the work if there are changes in site condition that increase the risk, or if new hazards are identified, promptly notify the site authority of these changes. Whose roles and responsibility is that one?
You'll have to scroll up for me to see.
Yeah. Isn't that Paria's responsibility?
Which one?
To stop the work if there are changes in site conditions that increase the risk of new hazards?
This is what page?
Page 29.
29.
Yes, the fifth dot.
I want to see the header. If it's 5.1 or... Okay, so it's 5.1.
No, page. Yes, it's 5.1.
Right.
Just at the top. The applicant,
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
is the person completing a work permit. The applicant must have the necessary competence, etc. Stop the work if there are changes in site conditions that increase the risk of new hazards, etc. Would that apply to Paria?
That would apply to the applicant, who can be a Paria, a Kenson, or even the contractor.
Or even the contractor?
So it would be applicable to the applicant.
And the applicant on the 25th was Kenson, so it would have been Kenson's responsibility.
That would have fallen under his responsibility, yes?
Yes. And then if you look at the one above, continually monitor the job to ensure that it's performed in a safe manner and within the conditions prescribed in the work permit certificates and GHRS risk assessment, he may sign the renewal section, etc., etc. That would be the applicant, and if it's Kenson, would be the Kenson responsibility.
Yes.
Yes.
To continually monitor.
Yeah. Now, you notice that it says there, continually monitor, not part-time, continually.
It doesn't say continuously.
It doesn't say what?
Continuously.
Continuous.
It says continually.
Okay.
Well, he's right, isn't he? He does say that.
Right, okay.
Is there a difference?
In the understanding from the HSC training for permit to work, there is a difference. Continually.
Tell him, he knows about this.
Continually. Okay, so this is specific to this permit, specific to the training. What I understand that continually is more periodically as compared to continuously
Okay.
in this instance here.
The next one I want to show you is CB 1033, Volume 3. And this is 1033. And this is Paria's work instructions, right?
Where are we, please?
CB 1033.
Got it.
Right. You see the document is an instruction prepared by Paria as to exactly...
Could I just come back to your question, because something just crossed my mind, just to make it clear for you, with the applicant, right? Because you're suggesting that the applicant is on the job, dedicated monitoring, dedicated supervising, right? The applicant in the permit to work system can have more than one job in progress. He can apply for one job in this. So it would be impossible for him to be on both sides at the same time. But the contractor official is the one who is supervising the work and needs to be dedicated to the job. So I just want to clarify that, because I think you're suggesting that the applicant should be on the job continuously.
But if for some reason a Paria person cannot be there, Paria can put somebody else in order to deputize for the time being.
Paria can do that to do the monitoring.
Yes. Okay, whatever you want to call it. Okay?
Not whatever, to do the monitoring.
Okay. You're calling it monitoring. And for these purposes, I would accept that for the time being.
Thank you again.
Okay. I want you to look at that document, page 1033. And you see that it is a document by Paria and is an instruction as to how the clearing of the line was supposed to be. So you see the title, Clearing of Line Between Berths 5 and 6?
Yes.
Right? Then you go to see the scope of works, clearing of section between berths 5 and 6.
Yes.
And then you see responsibilities.
Yes.
And you see the terminal operation manager has the overall responsibility for ensuring that this procedure is established by reviewing and approving this work instruction and ensuring the offshore team lead understand the requirements of this work instruction. You agree with that?
Well, yes, that is written there.
And it says that the offshore team lead has direct responsibility to ensure compliance with the procedure by reviewing and approving this work instruction and ensuring offshore operation team supervisor understand the requirements of this work instruction. And can I refer you to paragraph 3 and 4 of your witness statement? At paragraph 3, you said my role as team manager. My role as technical and maintenance manager is to direct the services of general engineering and central maintenance to the terminal operations in compliance with safety, engineering, and regulatory standards consistent with the business plan for Paria's terminal situated to so-and-so. And then you itemize at paragraph 4 what your duties are, and I won't go through all of them with you, but I go to number 7, ensure the effectiveness of the maintenance management system, including adequate record and knowledge management, as well as performance management and reporting, to continually optimize the maintenance planning and scheduling process. Oversee project management and control for projects such as major projects. Example, tank operates, berth turnaround, and sea line and pipeline network repairs replacement. Then at 11, implement HSE standards and ensure adherence to same. Communicate information effectively upwards and downwards. Those are accurate?
Yes.
Okay. I want to ask you a few things about line clearing, okay? Would you agree that the line clearing, if you don't know, say you don't know, okay? Would you agree that the line clearing was done in 2 phases?
The line clearing operations specifically I was not specifically involved with or the development of the procedure.
So you weren't.
So I think I would say let's stay away from this time.
Okay. Would you be able to help us, to tell us how many barrels of oil it had in the lines before it was cleared?
I believe it may be somewhere in the documents. Either pre or post.
I have a document. I'll show it to you, and you'll tell me if you agree with that. I think it's 2,000 or 3,000 barrels. Is at core bundle 2, page 564, and you would see just under 3.0 scope of work, estimate volume of product between isolation points, 2,000 barrels. Would you accept that?
I accept that that is written into the document, yes.
Well, you know or you don't know? You don't know.
I don't know the exact volume of the line.
You don't know.
The isolation
Okay.
points.
We can't really expect you to remember that, can we? You know?
No,
I mean,
well, I think the Honorable here is expecting me to remember that, but inside of the document is an estimated volume of 2,000 barrels. I can see that.
But that figure is in the scope of works,
Yes,
which was prepared by Paria.
correct.
Right. You are familiar with the daily work reports of Paria?
I'm familiar that there are daily reports, but normally I wouldn't really have a line of sight on that specifically.
But I want to show you something from the daily about the removal of the barrels of oil, right? And can I show the witness volume 2 of the core bundle 994 to 1019? I'll just point out something to the witness. 994. Where's my bundle? $994, Mr. Wade. You got it, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Yeah. You have it, Mr. Way? Page 994?
I've seen it on the screen.
Oh, you see it on the screen. If you look at number 3 on page 994, you see in the last column, job status. Air blowing started 12:22 p.m. due to operation setting up to drain to tank, and air blowed until 1800 hours. A total of 798 barrels of oil was drained to tank. Okay? You saw that?
Well, I'm seeing it here, yes.
Okay. All right. Then you would agree that this, the daily report of Paria is in this form in respect of this kind of activity?
Yes.
Yes. Then we go to page 997. And number 3, mechanical, look at the job status. Air blowing started 11 a.m. due to installation of slip plank, and air blowed until 5:30 p.m. A total of 118 barrels of oil was drained. You saw that?
Yeah, I'm seeing it, yes.
At page 1002.
can we identify the dates that these
sorry,
happened as well? Can we identify the dates?
Oh, yes, sorry.
The first one was on the 18th of January. This one was on the 21st of January.
Yes, I'm much obliged. I'm much obliged. At 10:02, that was on the 1st of February 2022, and it says at the first column, completed, installed 2 lengths of 6 feet 30 inches hose together with 1 length of 6 feet 40-inch pipe and 6 inches check valve from SL36 riser to SL66 riser to assist with phase 2 air blowing. And then if you go to at paragraph 4, mechanical, level was checked and pipe estimated to be 3/4 full of oil contents. Then we go to page 1003 on the 2nd of February 2022. At number 1, air blowing was conducted between 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Onshore noted that they received 276 barrels of oil. Note started air blowing 11 a.m. due to lining up of tanks and waiting for pressure to build up. Then you see at number 4, level was checked after draining at PB80 and pipe estimated to be 1/4 full with oil contents to continue draining tomorrow. Then at number 5, ongoing 2 slops barge was filled approximately 100 barrels of oil. Then at page 10004, the 3rd of February 2022, at number 1, air blowing was conducted between 1300 hours and 1500 hours. Onshore noted that they received 55 barrels of oil. Note started air blowing 1300 hours due to waiting on onshore to give clearance to start. Then at number 4, completed level was checked after draining at PB80 and oil content was approximately 8 feet below T of riser. Then number 5, completed 2 slops barge was filled approximately 100 barrels of oil. That was the 3rd of February. Then we go to the 4th of February, 10005. Number 1, completed air blowing was conducted between 10:30 a.m. and 14:30 hours. Then we go to 10006, 5th of February. And then number 1, remove hoses from inside riser and install 30-inch solid blank at end. Remove temporary hose piping and check valve going to 6 inches to SL66. C-line 66 and solid blank end. So, Mr. Ware, I think I have a duty to ask you because I just want to find out. You would not have an idea of how much oil was drained from topside piping or from the underwater piping?
No, I would not have.
No. I want to show you a letter dated the 20th of July, 2022, from Paria to OSHA, dated the 20th of July, 2022. It's electronic bundle 2906. I have copies that I could pass of the letter to the witness and to the commissioners and to the other side.
Copies for everybody else.
Yes. It's on the screen. And this was in response to inquiries from OSHA of matters, and I'll go straight to page 2906, the second page of the letter. Number 3, the rationale for utilizing the equipment in item 2 above to remove content from C-line 36 diameter between berth 5 and berth 6. Response from Paria, and I read, An air compressor was logistically more practical given the configuration of the pipeline. The volume of hydrocarbon removed from sea line 36 between berths 5 and 6 prior to the installation of the subsea slip-on flange 30-inch diameter as per method statement. Response. Given the configuration of the system, it is impossible to segregate and measure the displaced volume. 5. The volume of hydrocarbon removed from sea line 36 between berths 5 and 6 after the accident. Response. The volume of hydrocarbon removed is estimated at 125 barrels. The quantity is based on the estimated spilled hydrocarbon, 6 barrels, and the recorded volumes of hydrocarbons recovered in the sea manatee, 119.8 barrels. So, well, this is from Paria records. At paragraphs 85 and 86 of your witness statement, you gave an opinion about delta P. Page 1286 and 1287. And in that opinion, I'll ask you to read it, 85 and 86.
85 and 86?
Yes.
'85.
No, you can read it to yourself.
Oh, you tell me. I thought you wanted me to read it for everyone. Sorry.
If you read it to yourself, then I can read it, paragraph 86 for you. What day was the migration? And that was the same date at the habitat.
Yes, I've completed reading 85.
Right. And at paragraph 86, you said that the removal of the migration barriers by LMCS also open up the differential pressure between the pipeline and the chamber, which is likely to have caused a powerful and immediate suction effect, which pull and entrap the divers inside the pipeline and ultimately caused the death of the 4 men. Now, you told us earlier that at the time of this incident, you did not have any idea of delta P. But since the incident, you have read about it and you got some knowledge about it. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's based on that knowledge that you acquired. You have put that, based on that knowledge, your paragraphs 85 and 86.
Yes.
Right. But since you have some knowledge of it, would you agree with me that it did not need, in the circumstances that day, it did not need the pulling of the plug to activate the delta P? I'll explain it to you. Would you agree with me that a latent hazardous differential pressure condition was created by the works which were involved in the removal of fuel oil from the pipeline and the installation of the migration barrier with the installation of the hyperbaric chamber? In other words, when that occurred, that created a latent delta P situation. And just for your information, the habitat was installed on the 13th of February, and the migration barrier was installed on the 13th of February. So would you agree with me that from the 13th of February 2022, there was in the habitat a latent hazardous differential pressure condition?
Okay, you mentioned the 13th that the hyperbaric chamber was installed and the plugs were installed.
Yeah.
Not in that sequence. The plugs were installed and then the hyperbaric chamber was installed.
Yeah.
Right? So with the plugs installed and the hyperbaric chamber installed and the hyperbaric blown down.
No, I'm not talking. Habitat installed. And sorry, the expression blown down. Yes, go ahead.
No. Just trying to make sure we have the right, what we're saying here correctly.
Yeah.
Right? With the migration barrier installed and then the hyperbaric chamber installed over it, if it was the latent delta P with the plugs installed, yes, there would be that.
There would be that. So therefore, during the period, the 13th of February 2022 to the 25th of February 2022, you had a latent differential pressure situation and you had plugs. Would you agree with me that if there was some leak on those plugs over that period, it could have caused an active delta P situation?
If there were leaks on the plugs, just stretching the imagination, because the plug is a tight seal.
No,
the mechanical plug is a tight seal. Yeah. And those, when installed by the contractor, would have done a quality test to ensure that it was good. They would have done a quality test to make sure that the plug was functional and acceptable to use. So
okay.
This is like a situation like,
all right,
I don't know, like.
Okay, Mr. Y, you do not want to assume that. So would you agree with me that on the 25th of February 2022, when the permit to work was issued for these works, there was existing in the chamber a latent hazardous delta P situation?
Yes.
Yeah. I have no question for you. Yeah, I think I should get this. At paragraph 52 of your witness statement, you referred to a meeting that you had with Mr. Terence Rampersad Singh on the 24th of February. I don't know what to do with my witness statement. I'll get it, sorry. Paragraph 52. Yes, at page 1280. And you told him that the works were to resume on the 25th. And then you told him at paragraph 53 what was discussed. You stated what was discussed. Do you have there were any contemporaneous notes made by you at the time of what was discussed?
No.
No. So when you recorded this, when you made this statement, you spoke from memory?
Yes.
Yes. And that was if you signed this statement on the 10th or 10th?
16th of August.
16th of August, 2022. And you were speaking from memory of an incident, of a meeting you had on the 24th of February, 2022. And you were able to remember all these details.
Yes.
And what about at paragraph 50 what? Paragraph 53. At paragraph 53, you gave details of what the scheduled work for Friday was.
Yes.
Correct? And you gave the scheduled work for what the work on Saturday was.
Yes.
What do you say from memory? That was a meeting between LMCS and Paria.
That meeting was between Terence Rampersad Singh and Paria and LMCS.
And LMCS. So it was
Yes.
Paria representing Mr. Rampersad Singh representing Terence
Right.
by Terence
Paria.
Rampersad Singh
Right.
and LMCS. Were you at that meeting?
No, I was not at that meeting.
So you have minutes of that meeting?
I would not have minutes of that meeting.
So you were not at the meeting,
Right?
but you remember this from memory.
Yes. Terence Rampersad Singh would have discussed with me after the meeting and say that work is going to start and these are the works planned for the weekend.
But all these works, you remember it in that sequence from your memory? Without looking at any document? Because you just said you didn't have any notes.
Yeah.
You were not at the meeting. Terence Rampersad Singh tell you something in February.
Right?
And you, when you have to do this statement in August, you remembered what he told you.
At the time of this, yes.
Yeah. Well, let's go to paragraph 56.
That was the day the minutes was signed. Okay?
At paragraph 56.
The date on the document, the date signed.
Yeah.
It's not the date when it started. I don't have an exact date when I started writing, but when I started writing, I would recall what I wrote.
Anyway, you
No,
told us.
I'd like to understand that, please. It's a very long statement, so I can imagine it would take more than a day. So can I be clear? The document is ultimately signed on the 16th of August of this year. Give us some estimate of how long it took you to put this together.
I don't know, maybe 3 months plus.
So over a period of 3 months, you were writing this statement, a bit at a time, obviously not doing that on its own, I appreciate. So realizing that it was going to be necessary, you put this document together. Did you do it yourself?
Yes.
Did you do any...
Okay. I prepared the document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether you type yourself or you get someone to do it for you. Did you type it yourself?
Yes.
I mean, did you cut and paste bits from other statements or other documents?
No.
Could you just have a look at page 1281 for a minute, please? Yeah, you see it right there. Stop. No, go back again. Go back. Just stop there. Do you see paragraph 56, which you're about to be asked about?
Yes.
Do you see it starts with a list of numbers after that, doesn't it? After the introduction, as it were. Yeah?
Right, yes.
Is it just me, or is it that it looks as though the numbering that comes afterwards with all those different lines, setting out what they are at a different angle from the previous two lines, as if that bit has been pasted on?
Which numbers?
You see, it says, doesn't it, paragraph 56, the specific tasks required to be done by LMCS and the sequence of the said tasks from Friday, February the 25th, up until completion of the works were as follows, : and then you list 23 different things that were done, yes?
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you look at where the 1 is on that list,
Look at.
yes, On your page, it looks exactly the same on the page that you've got in
Yeah.
front of you, right? The number 1 on that list underneath the word from, you see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And the distance between that and the distance between the word workday and completion on the same lines. Do you see the distance between the two?
Yes.
Right. Do you agree with me that they are both that they are at different distances? One is wider than the other.
Yes.
Right. Does it look to you as if number 1 through to number 20 on that page has been cut and pasted onto the page?
I typed it in and I know it wasn't cut and paste. If you look high up on the page, it's really, for me, it seems to be on the scanning of the document that would have twisted those lines.
Right.
And writing a document over some period of time is really formatting.
So it's really just the scanning of the document. Do you have the original?
I would have the original somewhere, yes.
Do you think you might make it available to us? Not today, but whenever you get a chance, try and dig out the original and let us have it. Do you think you could do that?
Yeah, I'll see.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. And just before I hand you back to Mr. Maharaj, this particular paragraph that you're about to deal with, is this again without notes?
This, yes, this would have been without.
Without notes. I'm only asking, I just need to understand what you're saying. You see, you told us the statement was compiled by you over a period of 3 months or so, leading up to the 16th of August. Right. And to the best of your recollection, you didn't use notes, you were doing it from your recollection. Is that right? Have I got that right? Or if I've got it wrong, tell me, put me right.
I would have referred to some documents,
Right.
But I would not have specifically recall one document.
Because it's difficult, isn't it, for anybody to put a statement together of, I mean, how many pages does it run to? It's 15, 20, there's 162 paragraphs. It's an extensive statement, and it must have taken you a while, as you've told us. I just want to understand, if you use notes, that's fine. I would just like to see them, that's all. Because otherwise, all we have is what you say in the statement. Do you follow?
Yes.
And where you've been already referred to a list of particular items, you say you didn't use notes, and I'm asking you if you used notes for this list of 23 items, and whether you, if you did use notes, where are they?
Right, and I'm saying that these were the sequence of events that what I would expect it to have been done.
And so where did you get it from, that sequence?
From knowledge of how the work should be done.
Right. So you're relying on memory.
And yes, in effect, yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr.
That's all right. Mr. Way, does Paria have any record of the work plan for the 25th of February, of what happened at the meeting for the work plan?
And at there would be the toolbox meeting.
Toolbox meeting.
Right? And there would be the permit. Whether there is a specific document that says what was the work plan for that day, I'm not aware.
But, okay. Now, in this sequence of the works that you gave at paragraph 56, you would notice that you set out is for the new riser section to remove as task 10 and 11, and for the plugs to be removed thereafter at task 20. Correct?
Yes.
And you're telling us today that you remember those sequences purely from your memory.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I want to show you The method statement number 116, dated the 4th of January 2022, CB 1051, Volume 3. Oh my God, where my Volume 3 is? Where my Volume 3 is it? I don't know.
One mic.
I wonder if before we go to that, we might just take a 5-minute break, a comfort break for some, and then we'll press on. Hopefully we'll be able to conclude, all right? So 5 minutes, please. All right.